Right, Forest fans, Max Newton here on Talk Forest TV, giving you a quick preview of Nottingham Forest away at Crystal Palace in El Clasico. The game between the two clubs, obviously, that were battling out in the courts, the Court of Arbitration for Sport, for place in the Europa League, which Forest won quite rightly and quite properly, because Crystal Palace, like numerous other clubs this season, had broken the rules, hadn't got their affairs in order, were clearly multi-club ownership, and couldn't be in the same European competition as another club as part of the same ownership group. Cut and dry case, absolutely simple. Forest done nothing wrong, Marinakis done nothing wrong, and yet Steve Parish, aided and abetted by the media, by Gary Lineker on his podcast, by Sky Sports, whipping up a frenzy in the media, on social media, among Crystal Palace fans, to such an extent that I had serious concerns about the safety of Forest players, Forest staff, Forest ownership, and Forest fans at Selhurst Park. And I think it's an absolute disgrace that Steve Parish and nobody at the club have done anything to try and calm things down and quell the tensions. It's disgusting, and really they should be fined for it. But there we go. Talking about the football, Forest had a great start to the season. Just goes to show pre-season doesn't mean a jot. So, we scored one goal in 7 pre-season games, and we scored 3 at half-time against Brentford, played absolutely scintillating football. Some of the one-touch football was absolutely brilliant between Gibbs-White and Anderson and Endoy. Brilliant. I think Anderson probably man of the match, but Gibbs-White was absolutely unplayable. Sangare carried on how he left last season, looking really, really impressive. Looking like, at long last, the player we thought we were getting when we paid £35 million for them, and possibly the player that enables us to play on the front foot and with more possession. Unfortunately for Sangare, he's now going to have some serious competition for his place in the team from Douglas Luiz, and I think that could be the future. Brilliant to see Endoy get his first goal. I thought he was tremendous also, full of running. Matt Sells made a good save. Nico Williams made a good block. Defence looked really solid. It was a great atmosphere, great tifo, great game, great 3 points. And we're all sat there with our feet up, looking at all the new signings coming in. McAtee, I think, is a brilliant signing. Hutchinson's a brilliant signing. Louise is a brilliant signing. Kali Mwende looks potentially a really brilliant signing as well. Obviously, Chris Wood gets 2 goals, so he's carrying on where he left off last season. And I think I saw he's like 13 goals off Didier Drogba in terms of Premier League goals, and I think people need to put some respect on Chris Wood. Last season might have been the best season he's had in terms of goals, but it's far from a fluke and far from a one-off, because he was scoring 14, 15 goals regularly for struggling Premier League teams like Burnley, who didn't create as many chances as Forest create. So going into the game, in terms of on the playing side of things, I think we'll probably play the same starting 11 as started at home against Brentford. I don't see any reason why you would change a side that performed so fantastically in that game. Where I think we'll see changes is on the bench. You can't see Louise, McAtee, Hutchinson and Kali Mwende being happy not being in the matchday squad. So we might see players not make the matchday squad, like Bolly, Jota, maybe Zach Abbott or Cunha might miss out possibly, maybe even Tyro Wanyi. But all of a sudden you're looking at a bench where Nuno has got fantastic options to change the game, which is what we didn't really have last season, particularly in the second half of the season, towards the end. Looked to the bench and it was Sousa and Jota that not quite doing it, whereas now looking to change the game and drag something back, or you've got fantastic options on the bench, which bodes really, really well for the competitions that are in going forward in the season. So yeah, I think we play the same team. I'm predicting a 2-0 win for the mighty Reds. Goals from Chris Wood and Morgan Gibbs-White, and lots of points picked up for the Fantasy Premier League by Elliot Anderson, and the defence in particular, Milenkovic and Nico Williams. Obviously, in the last week, we've had the bombshell press conference from Nuno. It's really, really hard to fathom what's going on here. Danny Taylor in The Athletic writes that it's an issue between Nuno and Edu that was an issue from like their first meeting, which makes you think, it's some sort of like family feud. Maybe Edu, killed his mother in the fields 10 years ago, and Nuno's out to revenge that or something. There's a bit of talk about there being, one is Edu is Jarabchian's man, and Nuno is Mendez's man. And is there something in that? Because they're two big rivals in the Super Agent stakes. Also talk that Nuno wants a small squad, but he's getting a big squad. But that doesn't stack up, because Nuno has been publicly saying we need more players. Would Nuno really kick off this much about not getting Adama Traore? I mean, I'd like to see Traore in, but I think we've got really good options in those positions. If it's simply a case of sort this out by getting Adama Traore in, let's get the man in. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's a really strange one. It seemed to be started off by that Italian journalist claiming that Marinakis was looking to sack Nuno, which seems to have been potentially something placed in the press by Edu as a way of stoking things up, and then Nuno's reacted in a rather odd way. I mean, it's still very out of character for Nuno to react and to come out like this. So yeah, I mean, if it's Edu or Nuno, I'd get rid of Edu, put him on Olympiacos and Rio Ave duty, and keep him away from the City ground. But then maybe it's all these things get blown up in the press and the media and social media much more than is actually the case often. I thought Nuno's conversation with Colin Fray on Radio Nottingham looked like it was playing it down perhaps a bit more. And I've heard reports coming out of the City ground that staff and players sort of think it's been blown up quite a bit more than it is. So maybe in actual fact it's much ado about nothing. But obviously it's a really, really worrying time for Forest if we think Nuno might be going. It could be a massive implosion, and for God's sake, please don't bring in that clown Ange Postecoglou. Absolutely terrible. And Mourinho, I saw, anti-football, fall out with everybody, and we'll leave. We don't want Postecoglou. We don't want Mourinho. We want Nuno. If it's not Nuno, I'd go Iriola from Bournemouth, or Glasner, because that would really be hilarious if we took Glasner off Palace as well. So anyway, let's hope it's a good game. Let's hope it's safe and sound for all the Forest players and staff and fans, and everybody gets back from South London safely. 2-0 win for the mighty Super Reds, and a statement from Marinakis stood with Nuno by his side, holding hands on the pitch afterwards, saying everything's fine, and we're going off on the coach on the way home together with our cheese and beetroot cobs and a glass of Madri. Come on, you Reds.